Alrighty, we're back at it again. All right, it's been I think 2 weeks since my last upload. I uploaded actually technically last week, and I got a copyright. I didn't get a copyright strike. I got a community guideline strike. I always thought I was going to get a copyright strike first, but I didn't. I got a community guideline strike, and I was trying to upload Fallout before the majority of the people out there did. We can legitimize this channel a little bit, but whatever. That didn't happen. But that's not the reason why I got the guideline strike. I got the guideline strike due to zinc and copper connection. Um, I guess I made medical claims that were against the community guidelines. We're going to make those claims all over again. We're just going to hide it really well. I'm just kidding. There will be no medical claims on this channel. This kind of sounded like Bill Clinton on that one, huh? All right. And then we're going to start off with some Exodus 3 decoded, Fallout, and then the copper zinc connection. And like I said, just so I don't get the channel shut down. Truth be told, no earthly medical claim connection over here. The only medical claim that I can say the cure-all is Jesus Christ. Hopefully that doesn't get my channel shut down. When I go over the zinc connection, I'm just observing. We're just observing, and we're proofreading, and we're making sure there's proper grammar and correct pronunciation. Yeah, we're proofreading that article. We're not looking at it for medical claim purposes. Okay, so YouTube, kiss my butt. There you go. I said it. Okay, so yeah, I'm a little hurt because of that strike. That was probably my cleanest video I ever done. I walked away from it saying, "Oh my gosh, I actually felt confident doing a video. Everything came out the way I wanted it to come out." And then now I'm racking my brain trying to edit everything I'm gonna say, and it's really like I'm kind of like stressing out about it. I don't know if I'm gonna make the same connections or whatever, but I'm gonna try my best. And again, I'm gonna talk in code when I talk about um, the vid 19. I'll do it backwards because we know what it really means backwards, like possession of the spirit or possessing you, right? Divok 19, because that's what it's really about. And then also, yeah, stuff like that. I'll talk in code. And 7-Eleven will be, remember, in Latin, 7 and 9 is a 7. So 7-Eleven will be code for. That's right. Anyway. And it is code for it, by the way. If you've watched the decodes, tools for decoding, broke all this stuff down. All right, so with that being said, here we go. All right, Exodus 3 decoded. There wasn't that much in this chapter, but we got to go through them because we're doing the Bible verse by verse, line by line, chapter by chapter, word by word. And sometimes these chapters are going to fall flat, especially when we get into like the chapters with, I don't know. You always find something cool. You just got to dig harder for the chapters that you think that there's nothing in. Anyway, okay, here we go. So Exodus 3:1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. All right. So the backside of the mountain. That reminds me of this verse right here. And I will take away mine hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. And that's God saying this. And that's equated to the Old Testament being the back parts, and the New Testament being Jesus Christ, the face, the front parts. Right? And then Horeb means mountain or desert. Exodus 3:2, and the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Exodus 3:3, and Moses said, I will now turn aside and see a great sight, why the bush is not burnt. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, he called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. And we've heard that over and over and over. And he said, Draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Exodus 3:6. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And legend has it that, I'm pretty sure back in them days that they thought that the power of God, looking upon God, would consume them. And that's the reason why, like Moses, every time he looked upon God, he literally like got sunburnt. His skin color changed. We'll read more on that later on. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows. I come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and bring them up out of the land unto a good land, a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto a place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Exodus 3:10. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Moses said unto God, Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, and I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And this is, again, reference to that God can utilize anyone, even somebody who's potentially even a murderer, just like Moses murdered those Egyptians and fled from the face of Pharaoh. This is proof that God can use anyone. And I wouldn't say it's maybe even not even like a murder, like justifiable murder. Or maybe it is justifiable murder. I mean, because the people are oppressing them to the point where, God is intervening. But it's also a good example of God's forgiveness with all people, as we talked about before. And, don't count yourself out if you went to the, army and you've killed people, or if you've done horrible things, or, you've been in prison for horrible things, or things that you can't talk about with people. Um, you could talk about it with God, and God forgive you and work through you, for sure. All of us are sinners here. No sin is above the rest. That's the reason why Jesus came. came to take our sins, not not the sins of a certain demographic versus the sins of somebody else's. He didn't come to take your white lies versus sexual immorality. He came to take all sins. And therefore we can't segregate our sins. We can't say, oh, that group is sexually immoral, and they're condemned to hell. Well, how many times do you think badly of people? Well, that's a sin. How many times do you think lustily of people? Well, that's a sin. How many times do you think you've talked badly about people? That's a sin. How many times have you got the Bible wrong? Well, that's a sin. Jesus came to take all of our sins, and no sin is different. All sin, and therefore God can utilize all of us. Okay, Exodus 3:12, and he said, "Certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee, that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain." And this gives me a foreshadowing of the end times too. Like I said before many times, there's a foreshadowing of the end. You get the end in the beginning, and if you summarize all the stories of the Bible at the beginning, right, from Abraham, from the beginning, and you can see the end time story being played out. Like Moses and Aaron kind of emulate the two witnesses, and then you see the end times things happening in the Moses story, from the pestilences, to all the curses on Egypt, trying to free the people of the Israelites out of bondage. The same thing nowadays, right? You see that playing out right now. You see people being snake bitten, right, and going to relying on their governments for healing instead of relying on God. You see that in the Moses story. You see Moses and Aaron foreshadowing the two witnesses, and you also see the end too, like right here, like God ruling from his mountain. You shall serve God upon his mountain. And in Isaiah, this is also referencing the end, right? So Isaiah 6, we'll start from here. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf, and the young lion, and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. That's going to be an interesting sight. And the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. See, and then there's other verses that describe God ruling from his mountain. I thought that was kind of cool. In my eyes, I can totally see the foreshadowing of the end in the beginning. And that's why it's repeated throughout the Bible. You can get the end from the beginning. Alrighty. Exodus 3:13. And Moses said unto God, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers has sent me unto you. And they shall say to me, What is his name? And what shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. And the occult utilize the whole I am statement. They blaspheme it in all their movies, like the robot movies when they come to life and supposedly they have consciousness. I am. All right. They steal a lot of stuff from the Bible, by the way, and I'll point more of that out later on. And God said, okay, Exodus 3:15, and God said, Moreover, unto Moses, Thus shalt say unto the children of Israel, The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me unto you. And this is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together, and say unto them, The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared unto me, saying, I have surely visited you, and seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And right here, that also shows us, too, God's mercy on us. When we're completely beaten down by this world, or, we're having hard times, we're being oppressed, whether it be spiritually, physically, at your work, at your um, in your family, by friend, by your peers, by anything. If you're being oppressed anywhere, whether you're in prison, whether you're in the work field, whether you're in the church, God hears our prayers, God hears our pleas, and God does something about it. And this is a good example of just holding on to your faith. Okay, Exodus 3:17. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt unto the land of Canaanites, and the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And this also brings me back to that first verse that we were talking about, how the backside represented the Old Testament and the front side represented Jesus Christ, the New Testament. Same thing with Moses and Jesus. Moses represents the Old Testament, the law. He also will accuse you in the end times, because he represents the law. Um, and then Jesus represents grace. And that's the reason why Moses did not get to go into the land, as well as many of the Israelites, the land flowing with milk and honey, which is AKA heaven, right? Because we're looking at this through end time eyes. And it's a great allegory for that. So the law does not get you into heaven. It's grace that does. Jesus Christ, the front side. Okay. Okay. Exodus 3:18. And they shall hearken to thy voice, and thou shalt come, thou and the elders of Israel, unto the king of Egypt. And ye shall say unto him, The Lord God of the Hebrews hath met with us, and let us go, and we beseech thee 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. Okay, so that's another Jesus Christ allegory right here, right? 3 days' journey into the wilderness, and then, of course, a sacrifice, just like Jesus was sacrificed, died for 3 days, and then was resurrected. So we see a Christ foreshadowing in this verse. And it also reminds me of, is it Leviticus? The scapegoat. Jesus Christ is our scapegoat, of course. He took our sins. The goat shall bear upon him all their iniquities unto a land that is not inhabited, like the underworld, and he shall let go the goat into the wilderness. Or the wilderness is the underworld. But it just reminds me of that. But yeah. And you can see it paralleling that in almost every story of, you know, the Christ journey to the underworld and resurrecting. Exodus 3:19. And I'm sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go. No, not by a mighty hand. And that's just like nowadays, right? So grace is our freedom, right? It's our ticket to heaven. It's our exodus is the believing in the blood of Christ. And this world will stop at nothing, to try to keep us here, to try to succumb us, to try to corrupt us, even after you're saved. It doesn't stop, right? Whether it be the TV programming, whether it be drugs and alcohol, whether it be relationships, whether it be the school eliminating God from all of its curriculum, whether it be your the work field completely banning and the, the conversation of God. All this stuff, it's this world will stop at nothing to try to corrupt you and keep you here. Pharaoh is at your heels, so to speak. All right. So 320, and I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when you go, you shall not go empty. Before we get to this next verse, um, we'll recognize the fact that, uh, Pharaoh withstood all these things, right? He withstood the lice, all the curses, all the plagues, all the way up into the blood of the lamb on the doorposts, right? Which is your foreshadowing and your parallel to Jesus Christ's blood redeeming us from this world. The same thing was back then. So that's how you know there's a foreshadowing going on in this story of the end times. It's undeniable. Okay, Exodus 3:22. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor and of her that sojourneth in her house jewels of silver, jewels of gold, raiment. And ye shall put them on upon your sons, upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Egyptians. All right. On the first video I made, I didn't really think about this until I read it. Like right now, like when I was recording, and I was like, what the heck? Like, what does this mean? There's something deeper to it. And I found, I was trying to think of like, are they borrowing from each other? Are they borrowing from the Egyptians? I couldn't figure it out, and I couldn't figure out the ritual why, but did now. So let's check this out. Okay, that's kind of a cool verse. I will give this people favor, and you shall not go empty-handed. God promised to arrange things, not only to move Pharaoh's heart, but also to move the heart of the Egyptian people, so that when Israel did depart, they would be showered with silver and golden clothing. This was not stealing nor extortion. It was appropriate wages for the years of forced labor. In Deuteronomy 15:12 through 14, God says that if you have a slave and his time of service is up, you shall not let him go away empty-handed. God was not going to let Israel leave their slavery in Egypt empty-handed. Instead, they would plunder the Egyptians. And this also reminds me of end times, about how when God returns, the Christians or the God-fearing people will receive their treasures of heaven, like their crowns and all that stuff. So I see a definite parallel there. But I thought this was kind of cool, and it gives explanation to what that verse meant. To my mind, I think this is legit. It's right on point, and it coincides with Deuteronomy 15. All right, and that's pretty much on the decode. Learning about this stuff is definitely fun, and like doing deep dives and searching out commentary from other people. It's definitely fulfilling. And I hope you guys enjoy the decodes as much as I do. And believe it or not, on this channel, my decode or the decodes, none of it is ours. None of this stuff, none of the information, whether it's the community, none of it's ours. It's all given to us by God through the Holy Spirit. But these decodes get the most views, unfortunately. Even though I don't get many views on this channel at all. But when I do get views, it's for the decode, so that's kind of cool. It makes me feel better. All that hard work, doesn't go out the window. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the Fallout decode. And I simplified it big time on the first time I put this video out last week. But I made it way more confusing just so I have a harder time relaying this information to you. I don't know why I do this stuff. I don't know what. I wanted. Okay, so last week I didn't add any video clips. I just talked about it and I showed this picture right here. And you know what? It was easier for me to talk about it than it is for me to pull up video and then stop it and play it, stop, play it. And I felt safer on it too. Like I walked away like, oh, okay, no copyright strikes or notifications or anything like that. But I couldn't help myself. I had a whole week to think about this stuff. And so, of course, I dreamed up some video clips. And so what I'll do is the way I plan on talking about it. I wrote it all down, what I want to talk about first. And that's what I'll do. I'll just read you what I wrote down, and then we'll go through the video clips and identify what I talked about. And what I started off with last week was saying that I didn't find anything of deep significance in this decode. It was the traditional programming. And that's what we'll point out today is the traditional programming. There was a little bit of a deeper thing that I do want to talk about, and I'll roll over into the copper thing. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about the traditional programming, and that's like the White Horse and the Divok 19 and the Spike neutron. I don't know. I got to come up with words for the Spike neutron. So here we go into the decode. Okay, the movie centralizes around 3 characters, and their stories converge into one. It's a post-apocalyptic world, and it's after the nuclear bombs fell, and you have people that live underground, which represent the elitist. You have people above ground that represent, I guess, the people not rich enough to go underground. Okay, so the nuclear bomb represents people miss when they watch this movie. As we can see in this picture right here, that's a what? That's a spike 14. So are they really talking about an actual bomb that detonated, or are they talking about something else? We've made videos on this channel alluding to there is no nuclear bomb. The nuclear bomb, or there is, but not in the traditional sense. So the nuclear bomb is equated to the nuclear bomb, right? Like in Fight Club. Lie. The lie hurts worse than you've ever been burned, right? And the lie was the mark. Remember, he kissed his hand, and then he put lie on the saliva, and it burned through his hand. That is the nuclear bomb. Okay? And this show is allegory of that. It's not really talking about when the bombs fell, physical bombs, which they did detonate. All continents got hit by the nuclear lie, the nuclear bomb. And that was the spiritual bomb, the Vidco, the Divok, right? And the people underground, like I said, represent the unvaccinated. And the people above ground represent the vaccinated, or at least the majority of them. Okay? So you got to keep that in mind when you watch this. And you can see all the little clues. Right? So right here you have a spike protein, and always on the other side of these vault doors is death. Always. Okay? Okay, and then also to verify that it's referring to, um, you know, I'm trying to talk in code here, so pardon me. I have to say, referring to, the old spike. Um, at the end of the very first episode, you have the explosion, and then you have the Ferris wheel connected to it. And we've studied the Ferris wheel. So as the other channels, um, they probably did way better jobs than we have on this one. But the Ferris is reference to the ferrule tip, the ferrule being the hollow tube in a syringe. So therefore, the syringe is the nuclear bomb, right? Okay. Um, there's also the rider on the horse programming in the very beginning of the movie, right? When you see the bombs in the background detonating, you see the rider on the horse. And I have clips for all these, so we'll go over them in 1 second. And then underground, they all have these numbers, right? 31, 32, and 33. They create, they're trilateral numbers, of course, but they're also representative of the elite numbers, 33, how the Freemasons use 33, because there's 33 vertebra inside the, in the back of the spine, also in the foot. Um, 33% of the angels fell to earth, and supposedly Jesus died at the age of 33. So the Freemasons are obsessed with this 33 number because it has power here. 32 is 322, which is the skull and bones number. And 32 is also 23, which the skull and bones are referenced to the same thing, because it's equated to DNA in the altering and changing of DNA. That's why it's on a spike protein. Then you have the 31, which is the 13 royal bloodline. It's backwards, right? 13, the 13 royal families that rule the world. And they're the ones that are going to be living underground in these bunkers trying to escape what's going on top, which is happening right now, but people just don't see it because it's a war of principalities as well as mixed in with tribulation. People forget about that. Like tribulation, a lot of tribulation is internal, or it's a spiritual war, just like this vidco stuff is, right? That's the nuclear bomb. It's been detonated on all of us. We just can't see. And there's a lot of after effects and side effects that are happening now, and people are out there. That's why there's a lot of um, like the people on top. They're almost like rabid, like um, they almost look like zombies, and that's exactly the message you're supposed to get from it. Because the majority of the people on top that are affected by the radiation or affected by the vaca, they're running around like rabid zombies, and they eat each other. And there's a connection between Vidco and rabies. It has something to do with the prions. We talked about it before, and other channels have as well. Right here. And we'll talk more about it at a later time. Okay, there's also a transhuman element to it. Um, there are three characters that the show centralizes around. There's one that lives underground. She's looking for her father. Then there's a militant aspect to it. They call it the Brotherhood, and it kind of reminds me of the Jesuit Knights. There's a knight and there's a swire, and they kind of like the sniper and the spotter, and they roll around trying to get information or intel or tech, I believe. I could be wrong about that. And then there's the writer, of course, and he's looking for the same character. They're both looking for the Fauci type Gates character. He's a scientist of some sort, and we'll get into him in a little bit. All right. Let's see. And this Fauci type character, or this Gates type character, he injects this microchip, but the microchip is inside of a vaccine vial. So they're telling you this. The occult is telling you exactly what the microchip is, or what the mark is. It's not a microchip. It's what's inside the vaccine bottle. It's allegory. So I'll have those pulled up right now. So we'll check those out. All right, we'll start from the beginning and I'll break it down for you. And again, I'm going to have to pause this every few seconds. So I'm going to get a copyright strike. So forgive me. I know it's annoying and the volume kind of sucks when I do it this way. I don't know why. And what are these little X's? Oh, I better not touch them. Anyway, yeah. But I do have the subtitles on, so pay attention to the subtitles. But mainly it's the visual that you're looking for. All right, I'm going to pause this real quick to see if I can adjust the volume. That's it. Let me adjust this volume. It helps. I'm sorry if you're wearing earphones or whatever, I'm gonna blast your ears for about 10 minutes. All right, here we go. So right here in the background, this is the beginning of the movie. Again, too, or not again, but to add that the movie is like in a utopian world. It's like, of course, it's pre-apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic, but there's like old-fashioned stuff incorporated with like futuristic stuff, and it's really weird. Like the television sets are like from the 50s, and it kind of reminds me of the programming. Right, the programming hasn't changed since the 40s and 50s, and I believe that's the message they're trying to portray. I think that's what the whole um, antique element of this is. It's just that certain elements, certain things that they use that are old-fashioned, they haven't changed. They haven't changed the weaponized form of the television. They're still utilizing the same programming, the same techniques since the 50s and 40s. Anyway, and as we see the nuke go off, we do have these ribbons, and we've talked about that. What the ribbons mean, right? A bow is a ribbon, and then the rider has a bow. Remember, a bow is a ribbon, and ribbon is equated to the blood DNA. For people who haven't watched the old school videos, um, I erased a lot of them, so I'm sorry about that. Or actually, all of them from last year. Um, I get worried about the whole copyright thing and all that kind of stuff. So at times I do, and I harvest I harvested my vids, and I think I'll probably do that every year, so I don't have to really carry that on me, and then I get to re-talk about this stuff all over again, which is great. I can make new videos and explain them more and more and more and more. But the ribbon and the bow, right? They call it ribbon DNA, and the rider on the horse carries a bow and arrow, right? Your arrow is equated to your shot, so to speak, and the bow is altering the DNA. A bow is a ribbon, and a ribbon is DNA. And other channels have also talked about this stuff, so I'm not just making this up. But everybody who knows about this stuff, like the rider on the horse or the programming, are aware of this stuff, and you can see the ribbon in the background. So they're letting you know the nuke is connected to the DNA. In the movie Nope, I really broke it down. If you remember that one, but only a couple people watched that decode. Anyway, here we go. So the guy running with the girl, not this dude, he's probably one of the main. Well, I would say the main character, him and the chick, but um, and this is the pre-apocalyptic era, right? Well, it's current actually, and he's normal. He's not affected by the radiation, and you see later on that he will be affected by it. So it's almost like a Gemini character as well. And that equates to your rider on the white horse would be your Gemini character. See these people have bomb shelters, and he's in his cowboy uniform, and he's playing a sheriff, like a cop or a copper. And we broke that down in the movie Nope as well. It was the copper that destroyed the alien in the end. Remember, it was the copper ribbon. It was that big old balloon at the end that the alien ate and got sick from and died. Same thing. They're letting you know that it's the copper serpent is changing the DNA. You know, if you're confused about any of this, leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll explain it. I'll do videos on it, like I said, in-depth videos on it. And that's the joy of erasing the videos. I get to do them again and make them better. And there's your rider on the white horse. That's how the movie begins. Okay? I don't think I need to show you any more of this. Let me see. I don't. I just want to show you the traditional programming in these and what it means, right? So the rider on the white horse comes from Revelation 9 through 11, like 7-11. Remember, we're coding it like Revelation 9 through 11. And it's the rider on the white horse came to conquer. And if you notice that almost every single movie out there has that incorporated in it. This is the traditional programming. It's programming us, it's a spell, it's manifesting through us, especially people who are unaware, don't believe. They don't realize when we watch these things, we're putting these things into motion. We're making them come true. They're making them come true through us. It's magic. Same thing with the messages on the money that I talked about. We put our energy on the money, and they put the pictures. That's why you fold the money into I think, was it a pentagram? All the money you fold the exact same way, and you'll see the hidden picture, just like the Twin Towers, long before it even happened. And we're putting our energy and our belief and our worries and all that stuff is encapsulating and manifesting through reality. When we put it on, same thing with the movies, right? It's going into our subconscious. It's going in, and it's playing out through everything. Look at how much stuff, how many jokes, how many stories, how many personalities that we grasp and we try to be like in the movies and the music and the media. We try to be like the things that we see. They utilize that through us. And a movie is very powerful because of the sleep state it makes your brain go through. And yeah, it generates through reality. So I believe that they think that they're going to change the outcome of the world with their movie magic, with their media magic, with whatever it may be. And there's an element to it. So we have to arm ourselves with God so we don't become empty vessels, so they can't utilize us. So, you know, I believe when you have the spiritual eyes to see this stuff, you are no longer affected by it. You're no longer a co-signer of their hopefully inevitable outcome. But we know that the word is way more powerful. God is way more powerful. It doesn't matter about manifestation or anything or any kind of sigil, ritual, magic. God overcomes everything. He already wrote the beginning and the end of the beginning. It's already over. But I believe these are their attempts, their wicked attempts. And I've talked about this when it comes to like that little show, not little show, but that little short I Pet Goat 2. And I see Christians completely utilizing and dissecting that thing more than they do the Bible. They don't realize that they're putting spells and magic in front of Christians, good Christians out there, especially people who are not even, devout Christians yet. They're still teetering, lukewarmers that are, searching real hard to find God, or even people that are not believers yet, but still, that are ingesting their material. They don't realize that those things have a strong effect on us, especially wicked things like iPad Goat and iPad Goat 2 and iPad Goat 3. These things are wicked, and we got to show them. And, if we're going to discern them, we have to discern them, and we have to forewarn people and to arm themselves with God. And yeah, we got to be careful what we put out there. And same thing with what we ingest spiritually, visually, through movies. The same thing applies because this is conditioning. If you don't believe that there's an outcome from habitual conditioning, well, what do you think people do when they go on stage or they want to become a musician, they want to become an actor? They visualize and visualize and visualize until they get it right, until they actually do it, until they get motivated to do it. There's a power of there's a power in what's the word I'm looking for? Um, repetitive visualization, and that's exactly what this is. And the fact is that your brain goes to sleep in a certain kind of way when you watch movies, and it just secretly creeps into your subconscious. And that's the reason why we vote for certain people. Then a couple of years later, we're like, "Why did I vote for that guy? What? It's like I was under their spell." You know, exactly. It's all programmed within us. They're programming us to go to the right, to the left, to vote for him, vote for her. It's all in here. You just got to be able to see it. And this is the part where she's talking to this dude, it's her cousin, and she's trying to marry somebody from another vault. Um, and it's kind of a comical aspect of how like the elites they keep it all within the family. It's an allegory for that, for their inbreeding, so they can keep their bloodlines going. It looked like she had orchids too, and we talked about is that orchids or lilies? Probably both. But like the orchids represent the poison, the toxins, because they're toxic plant flowers, and then the lilies represent the generation birth from the baka, right? The lily generation. And here we go with the she's going to marry somebody from Vault 32, so it's not somebody, not one of her cousins or something like that. And it's actually it kind of reminds me of like a warped version of the bride, and she's going to marry some guy from Vault 32, but Vault 32 got hijacked by the people above, and the people above are radiated people. And I know I talked lightly about the radiation bloodline, but that has to do with the whole Bride of Christ because the Bride of Christ is the true radiation bloodline, and it has nothing to do with pigmentation or melanin, but the elite believe it is. We'll get into that in a minute. It's a spiritual bloodline because in the end times, the seven, the sun will get 7 times hotter, and that's what's actually causing the radiation or people to have radiation type symptoms here on Earth, and that will happen in real life because that's scripture. And the elite is infatuated with trying to find a remedy to this so they can withstand the heats of the end times. And they don't realize that it's Jesus Christ. We're spiritually protected. The radiation bloodline is Christ. And in other movies, they have it like with Bruce Banner, right? Like David Banner, um, right? He's radioactively activated, becomes even stronger and more powerful. That's the radiation bloodline, what I'm referring to. And it's in many movies. They hide it really well. And a lot of other decoders don't traverse that realm. Either they don't know about it or it's a really touchy subject because it comes into the play of racial, and they don't want any kind of racial indifferences or separation between them and their viewers. And it's nothing to do with race. That's just the elite. They believe it is because that's why they seek out melanated people, whether it be Latino or blacks or whatever, and they're infatuated with it. And and I believe they're trying to harvest that genetic, that gene or something, so they can protect themselves in the end days. but it has nothing to do with race or science. It's all with God. But right here, you have your bride and you have your radioactive man that she's going to marry. So, and if you think that's far fetched, I'll prove it to you by the end of this decode that that's exactly what they're portraying here. And right here, you can see your elite numbers, your 33 and 32. They don't even hide it anymore. And that looks like your spike protein. And on the other side is death because the people from above hijacked Vault 32. They're actually portraying to be Vault 32. Okay, so the next one. Okay, this is after they get married and she hears these shots going off. So the people from Vault 32 that hijacked them, they're going to hijack Vault 33 too and take her dad. And she's on a honeymoon right now with her dude. And she finds out he's radioactive. Right? Keep stay with me, stay with me. And see, that's how you know there's something more going on. You'll see in 1 second. And it's ironic that they're called Raiders. And we just had this whole Raiders stadium ritual about, if you've been watching the videos, it was the rider on the white horse and the whole vodka thing. That's what the whole ritual was all about. That's why they use Vegas nerve, because they're trying to hack the Vegas nerve. They're trying to control you like the Nintendo skin suit, possess you from the inside out. That's what their whole Raiders theme was all about. And you can see the checkerboard floor. And in a weird way, she represents like the queen of the unvaccinated, and he represents like the king of the vaccinated. You know? Okay, so right here, you'll see that there's a bloodline thing going on. That's why she runs into the atomic queen, because now she's radioactively charged, so to speak. What I was referring to, the radioactive bloodline. She's the atomic queen. That's not random. They throw that in there on purpose. Okay. Yeah, I threw this in there because I got a kick out of it. He's dunking his head in a barrel of potatoes. And if anybody knows anything about potatoes out there, um, potatoes are highly radioactive. So they have to actually, because I believe the way they're stored or the emissions that they give off, I should have looked it up, but they're radioactive and they have to actually store them separately for like a season before they can go up for sale because they contain, I think it's the radium from the ground. That's what it is, the radium. And that's another thing. That's another theme of living underground as well as the whole radium thing. That's the only radiation, not the irradiation coming from the bomb because that's allegory. I believe that's the reason why they use potatoes. Just got a kick out of it. I was like, huh. And then I've talked briefly about the cornfields, and the cornfields and also the sugar fields all represent death because of the GMO connection. We've talked about that on the tools for decoding. there's a direct GMO connection to corn. So whenever you see corn, Children of the Corn or whatever, or Logan, remember the monsters? Uh, they had their own cornfields and stuff like that, and X-24 came and killed everybody because it has something to do with death, right? They're letting you know that the GMOs and the corn, high fructose corn syrup, is death. Right, so those are cornfields in the background, and then they live underground, and in this cornfields they have this hologram theater type thing, and it creates like whatever you set it for. So it looks like there's clouds in the sky, and you don't know until this part that it was an underground, like it's a theater. I think it's also a mockery of real life, how they know that this is, you know, um, the reality. Later on in this movie, they talk about flat Earth and round Earth or whatever. They kind of mock it, but right here they kind of give you the truth. It's movie is a projection. It's light works. It's you know, and science can verify that. It's a simulation, man. That's the real deal, but it operates. you know and then I was also thinking about, like, the circumference of the earth, or the shape of the earth. Yeah, from maybe outside of the earth vortex, the earth may appear to be round or circular, but when you enter it, it operates just like a computer system, just like in the Matrix, just like in this movie. It's a projection, and that's the reason why water always finds this level. That's the reason why um, there's mathematics found in all living things, especially flowers and vegetation and stuff like that. It operates just like a computer system. You enter it. Anyway, but I don't want to get into that talk. We've made videos on it. Regardless of where you think that we live at, when we become Christians, we live in the Jesus centric world, right? I live in the bosom of God, in the ark of the Lord. Everything else doesn't matter. Anyway, that's it on that one. There's just cornfields in the back. Okay, so if you don't think there's a vid code connection to this, right? She's dreaming of going above ground and looking for her dad. She sees this sign in the hallway. There you go. Don't lose your head, because what is the Vidco virus all about? The coronal ring. What is what does the devil want? He wants to steal your crown. And if you look at cosmology, you'll see that great battle is in the sky. You have the serpent trying to attain the corona borealis, and you have your Hercules. Well, you see the whole story, right? You see the in Draco, you see the serpent attempting to go for the crown. Then you see Ophiuchus wrestling the serpent, trying to attain the crown, and then you have Hercules, which is your Christ-like figure because he's half God, half man, right? Even though in reality we know he's all man and all God, protecting the crown from the serpent, and that's exactly what we see happening in real life. That's what this is all about. That's the cosmological summary of it. Okay, next one. I'm just going to fast forward it to what I want you to see is this part. It's the next character. It's the rider on the horse, but it's in the future. And he seemingly is like a vampire. He can live a long time. He survives off these little vaccinated jars, this medicine that helps him tolerate the effects of radiation and the rabies and stuff like that. But this particular scene, this guy San Pedro keeps him alive and tortures him, I guess, through these means right here, right? You see this, and then these guys kind of unearth him and raise him out from the grave. And this reminded me of Numbers 21, verses 8 and 9, about the serpent on the pole. Because remember, their AC is their Christ. So he's going to emulate Christ. It's like Christ will come on a white horse as well, right? And a vestibule draped in blood. Um, Christ is albertized or even mentioned as being copper, right? Or brass, feet made of brass. And that goes to edification because that's what, the copper represent. Brass represented edification, um, biblically speaking. The same thing applies for here. So this reminds me of the caduceus in the story of Moses in Numbers 21, verses 8 and 9. When God told Moses to raise a pole, a brass or a bronze pole with the serpent on it. And the people that were snake bitten trying to enter see, a lot of people didn't make it to the promised land because they were complaining and they got snake bitten. Kind of sounds a lot like Vidco, right? And people who ran to the pharmakia, those are the people who are not going to make it to the promised land. Versus, the people who believe in the bronze serpent. The bronze serpent was allegorically Christ, because of the edification. And he's on a pole, just like Christ will be crucified. If we believe on Christ, we'll be healed from the venom. Same thing with the end times. And they're making a mockery of it now. They're using pharmakia and this AC type character as your Christ-like character and how he survives off of it. And there's a copper connection, a bronze connection to him as well. Like I said, when I was talking about the atomic queen, well, this character, his wife is a melanated woman. And that's the reason why they do that. And he's affected by the sun radiation because he represents the AC, and his skin is mutated. There's the other character, the transhuman character of the Brotherhood. He survives as a child because he hides inside of a lead-lined refrigerator, which will protect you from the radiation. That's allegory for his melanated genes to protect him from the radiation. That's what they're trying to tell you here. And so they raise him from the grave. I'll fast forward it. And so they have this chicken with them, ironically, right? So like the year of the chicken, of course, but it means more than that, as we've talked about it. So if you don't know anything about the year of the chicken, so the occult use like the Chinese and Vietnamese zodiacs to depict the times and seasons when these things will begin. Okay, and they also have their layered meanings. They also have layered meanings. So the chicken also represents, I'll show you 1 second. And when they raise him out of the ground to make sure that he's not rabid or feral, they have a chicken around. So if he doesn't attack the chicken, therefore he has control of his mind, right? He's not crazy and they can roll with him, so to speak. But if he kills the chicken, goes straight for the chicken, they know that he's rabid and he can't be trusted. Okay. Okay, so they have the chicken out. And they're raising him out of the grave. It reminds me of caves, when they use birds and they go deep down in the cave. And when the birds die or something, There's certain gases emitted. And they know not to go any further and get out. Okay, so that's the first half. I broke this up into two. And I just wanted to show you the traditional programming. So you have the chicken. This is what he looks like now because he's all radiated. He's transformed. He almost looks like a skeleton. Death. And the first thing he goes for is the chicken, but he doesn't kill it. And so a chicken, according to conventional science, is a descendant relative of a reptile, which is your serpent. And he carries the chicken on his chest, which is your serpent in the chest possession ritual that you find in almost every single movie. Um, they did the exact same thing on a mass scale for the Super Bowl as well. The Foster Farms chicken commercial. There's a bunch of roosters with a crown on them because roosters have a crown, and the roosters were talking. The roosters were singing, and the people weren't. So they had them all up to their chest, every single one of them. The rooster was on their chest, and the roosters were doing the singing. And it's because the rooster represents the serpent in the chest possession. Foster Farms is your 66. 66 is the Gemini code, as well as 6 times 6 is equals 36. 3 sixes. So it's code for 666 possession, demon possession. And you have the exact same thing going on right here. Oop, sorry about the language. Dang it. Again, there wasn't really deep meaning to any of this, just the traditional plug programming. And we're identifying it. It's worthy of identifying, I guess. And this is the section where I want to show you where you see the nuclear explosion, and then you have your Ferris wheel, like your ferrule tip. And you find the same programming in Transformers too, when they're looking for Sputnik over there um, in Russia, where they had that nuclear meltdown. You see a Ferris wheel in the little area that they go into. Chernobyl, right? That's what it's called. Anyway, see, and this is the first episode, and you can even see the snake coil, right? And then this is your ferrule tip. That's your explosion. There's your sun, or your whatever. It's all there. Ship. The ship is a vessel, right? And then there's your actual vessel. It's a broken ship or destroyed ship, destroyed vessel, aligned with the ferrule tip, the Ferris wheel, and the serpent to the right. Right? It's all there, man. You just gotta see it with your spiritual eyes. All right, so here's your Fauci / Gates character, and of course he has the dog. The dog, if you don't know anything about the dog, has connections with Sirius. Um, has connections with Sirius, being connected to um, Sirius A and Sirius B, which is your Canis constellation. It has something to do with Orion the Hunter and his dog, because that's in Sirius. Sirius is in the constellation of Orion, and the correct cosmological term for Sirius is Canis Major, Canis Minor. Okay, uh, so there's your stars connection too. But also, dog is also connected to God, right? Dog backwards is God. So what's your backwards God? Your AC. And I believe that that's what this is pertaining to, is your AC type character. One of many, because the dog's associated to everybody at some point in the movie, ironically. Okay, and why the dog is important in this section is because we'll see the mark pretty soon. What they're trying to tell you. See, now look at the vial. See the vial? It looks just like a, what do you call it, vial, right? And here we go. There's a little microchip, but it's in the vial. Why do they need to put a microchip in the vial? They're letting you know the vial is the microchip. I didn't say this. I'm not making this up. This is the people who are part of the programming, part of the occult. The enemy themselves are telling you exactly what the mark is. And look, he actually even has it by his hand, right? It's not the microchip, though. They're letting you know that the vial itself is the mark. And you'll see where he implants it. And see, the dog is associated. The backwards dog is the AC. And he implants it directly in the inferior brain region, where the inner Christ resides. There it is. Behind the ear and the rear part of the brain. And we've studied this area many, many, many times. All right? So if it was the mark, the traditional mark, it would be in the hand. They're letting you know exactly what it is. That's why they use the vial. All right, so here we go to the next clip. The next clip is more verification of there's this undertone of, this is the cool part about the movie that I like. I mean, the rest of the stuff is pretty traditional. Same stuff we talked about many times before, from the rider on the white horse to the mark to the possession and result of the mark, meaning, like that's what the allegory of the rooster was the demonic possession, the result of the mark. And then um of course you also have your bridges in here, from crashing the bridge to God by altering the DNA. That's what all this stuff means in that order. And that's what Revelation 9 through 11 kind of hints at. I mean, in a biblical way. But the occult kind of put it out there.
That's the programming, the conditioning they want us to accept. They want us to accept the AC. And this guy right here, he's from California, and they make it a point that he's from CA. What's CA backwards? AC. It's just code for the Antichrist. And he's the rider on the horse. And then you get more programming of, uh, the mark. You get the program to accept it, and you can see it in the vaccine vial. Right? They're letting you know the vaccine vial is the mark, is the microchip. It's all conditioning, so we accept it subconsciously. And they have to put the truth in plain sight. Therefore, you can't say when the time comes, oh, I didn't know. Well, we showed you. That's what they're saying. We showed you. We showed you. And you can even see the umbrella between them. And we know the umbrella has a ferrule tip as well. And then also the possession is the chicken, the Foster Farms. That's the result. That's part of crashing the bridge. Once they crash the bridge to God, the Rainbow Bridge. Remember the Rainbow Bridge decode over there in Niagara Falls? That's what all that was about. And then possession. Anything that's not of God is considered an antichrist possession. And it's also now you belong to the other side, the devil's possession as well. You become a possession as well. Okay, so this is the element of the movie or the TV series where I liked because there's something a little bit deeper, and there is this dualistic thing, and they also represent the red and the blue bloods, of course, the mixing of. But in movies, on a more discreet level, there's the radiation bloodline thing, and you see it throughout here that the occult, the elite, they're infatuated with it. Um, and I believe it has to do with everything with the sun getting hotter in the end days. And I believe that's probably one of the reasons why they chemtrail as well, because the sun is already beginning to get hotter and brighter than what it used to be. They call it global warming or whatever. It's biblical warming. And they seek protection from it, from harmful UVs, they call it. But, I believe for melanated people, they're not as harmful or if not harmful at all. And the occult want to capture that pigmentation, that hemoglobin, to escape the wrath of God. But people don't realize it has nothing, even though I just said it helps melanated people, the sun UV. We all know that, like that's why we buy copper tone when we go swimming or whatever to protect us, to shield us. It's no secret. And it is what it is. But if you want protection from God's wrath, that is becoming a Christian. That's believing in the blood of Christ, believing that Christ died for our sins and was resurrected. That's what all that's about. They're missing the big picture, but you can see their infatuation and their search in their movies. I'll show you, which I've already showed you, but here we go. Okay, so he does this is before the apocalyptic event happened. He does commercials. He's like an actor or whatever, and she wants him to wear this new suit. Before he was a sheriff, remember, a copper, because he represents the copper. His wife is copper. There's this copper element, copper tone. And of course, you see the umbrellas everywhere. And right here, you even have like the coronal and maybe even the eclipse symbol. And you have the 6 or the 33 in that sign. And then Vault Tech, you have the V and then the C, the beginning and the end. I could be looking too much into that, but keep on going. All right, so this is the scene, the part of the scene I want you to pay attention to. So there you go. So it's the radiation bloodline. The suit is allegory for the skin, and you can see how they focused on her, and nobody really says yes. Well, except I think it's a forced yes from this one lady, but like nobody else. Everyone has this weird little grin, like no, of course not. It was she lied to him, right? It's almost like without melanin or pigmentation or hemoglobin, is it really going to block, radiation? No, it's not. And you see him transform throughout the movie, and he's predisposed to the radiation. Unfortunately, that's your undertone melanin thing, and I think that coincides with like possibly even, I don't know. I'll leave it at that. I know it's kind of confusing, and I know it probably like makes people feel uncomfortable when you talk about racial issues or even skin and pigmentation and melanin. But it's no secret, like I said. When we go to the lake, we put that sunblock or when we want to look. We put that copper tone sunblock on us all the time. It is what it is, but at the same time, they're missing the big picture. They're missing the big picture. The big picture is that God's people has nothing to do with melanin or hemoglobin or race, has everything to do with belief. And by that belief, we are supernaturally protected. All right. But you can see that it's there. And that's what I was trying to point out. It's this copper theme and element. And also, there's some still pictures I want you to see too. And if you're confused about the whole copper element, leave a comment and we'll do videos on it. Or if you're interested in it, let me know. Okay, so this is in the beginning of the movie when he was wearing his copper sheriff uniform. On the back of it, there's a scorpion, and then you have him. And biblically speaking, the scorpion is equivalent to the serpent because they both sting or bite. And then you have the X, and he's going through the exit door, being the X Man, right? The X Man is the AC. And here's a close up on that scorpion, right? The old stinger. What's the stinger? And remember in Revelations, the locusts, um, they have the power to, torment men, and their torment's like the stinger of a scorpion, and they do hurt. Okay, And that will roll us into the copper zinc link. And I might talk in code a little bit, so forgive me if I'm fumbling around because talking in code is new to me. And between this, I took a break and I actually created a backup channel just in case I do get a copyright strike again. I can upload, re-edit, and upload for that week on that channel. Once I get that set up and going, once it's official, I'll put the links in the description. I did set it up, but I'm still working on it. I haven't even uploaded anything on it, so there's no point to give you the link until I upload at least something on there. All right, so okay, so 1982 was the year copper pennies have no longer become copper. And I'll read you this. Okay, the price of copper rose in the 1970s to the extent that the pennies almost contain their face value in copper. To alleviate the high seigniorage and concern about the potential for hoarding, the U.S. mint tested alternative metals like bronze clad steel and aluminum to replace the 95% copper cent. The mint settled on a 95% aluminum coin and more than 1.5 million 1974 aluminum pennies were struck before the composition was rejected by Congress amidst loud opposition. While the 1974 aluminum cents were recalled, there are some that did not return to the mint and could be exceptionally valuable if found. Pretty cool. Copper prices began declining in the late 1974, as did the cost to produce a penny, and the composition was not changed until 1982, when the copper price began to rise once more. October of 1982 saw the penny change once more, this time to a 95% zinc and 5% copper planchet, which is a casing, a cover. Excluding the 2009 bicentennial collector's pennies, all United States cents have been issued in copper-plated zinc. So why 1982? So I was watching another channel and they were briefly talking about copper, and I saw on the comments from one of their commenters said that in 1982, all copper penny, all copper pennies converted to, um, converted to zinc, and I was really interested in that. I was like, why is that? And I started thinking, and I was like, wait, I know 1982. I know that year because it's a Metonic year with 2001. And what happened in 2001? Exactly. So there's a connection there. And so I started diving a little deeper. I looked this up. And then right now we're going to see what a Metonic cycle is. Okay. Let me read this one. This one's a little bit better. The Metonic cycle is a period of almost exactly 19 years, after which the phases of the moon reoccur at the same time of the solar year. 235 lunar months is just 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 33 seconds longer than 19 tropical years. Meton of Athens in the 5th century BC determined the cycle to be a whole number of days, 6,940. Using these whole numbers facilitates the construction of a luni-solar calendar. The Chinese base their calendars on this. I wonder if that's the reason why they use these for their rituals. The Baha'i used it, and it has implications in all major religious calendars. I know the Jewish calendar uses the lunar calendar. That's why they're so precise. So that means every 19 years will find us at the exact phase of the moon. Meaning, if there was a new moon on December 4, 2002, there will almost certainly be one on December 4, 2021. As happened eventually, this shifts, I think if they meant to put shifts, to another date after 219 years. And that's why we're proofreading all this, folks. um, so if there's a eclipse on that year at that date or whatever, there'll be another eclipse. That's what they're saying. The revolution of the Earth around the sun and the revolution of the moon around the Earth have no particular scientific reason to bear any relation whatsoever to each other. Yet they do, creating a nearly perfect match every 19 years. As astonishing as it to find a point of synchronicity between the lunar and the solar calendars, the draconic reality pushes the envelope of all coincidence to beyond impossibility. At the same 19-year point where the lunar and solar calendars intersect, we find the intersection of 255 draconic months, lunar nodes. I'm not going to read all those numbers. So what they're saying is there's 3 separate calendars or timelines that coincide, and it's not coincidental. They're basically saying there's divine coordination in all this. Okay, solar year 365 days, 0.24 days. 365.24 times 19, 6,939.6 days every 19 years. Synodic lunar 29.53 days, which is like a month. 29.50, all those numbers, times 35 equals 6,939 days, which is every 235 months. That's a difference of only hours every 19 years. So the solar and the lunar calendars are on point, is what they're saying. The difference between 19 solar years and 235 lunar months is only about 2 hours, which is pretty precise. Now the draconic eclipse calendar. That's a weird name for that, huh? Results from the alignment of the moon and the lunar node about every 346 days, a reality that is completely independent of the solar and lunar cycles. 255 draconic months lunar nodes equals 6,939.11 days, which is 20.02 eclipse years, 40 eclipse seasons. Wow. That's less than half a day difference between every 19 years with the lunar and solar calendars. So all these different, from the lunar and the solar and the eclipse calendar, they all line up. And they're based on a 19-year progression. Not only is the sun the same size as the moon in the sky, the 3 different calendars all line up to allow for perfection in human observation of time and eclipses. So you're telling me that we live in a random universe? I don't think so. So that means you often see eclipses show up on the same dates for around a century. Okay, so that's a metonic cycle and more, and a lunar cycle and a draconic cycle, right? And that corresponds with 1982. And 1982, what a strange conversion from copper to zinc. What does that mean? Why did they do it? And why do they do it on a metonic calendar year? Why? I think I know why. And this is what got the channel a strike, is when I said maybe it's sigil magic. Maybe they have to put the truth in plain sight. And maybe there's something to the zinc and copper imbalances. And that's as far as I'll go. Just read between the lines. Um, I think there is something more. Remember when it was being pushed? Um, I think it had to be pushed. And not for nefarious purposes either. And that's as far as I'll go. All right, so here's your 2001, September. Right? And then 19 years later, in 2020, even though it started in China, but it didn't hit America until March 1st, 2nd. Okay, and that brings us to zinc. Okay, before I read this, I'm not making any medical claims. I'm only proofreading this article for proper spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Alrighty, here we go. Zinc. Increased intracellular zinc concentrations efficiently impair the replication of a number of RNA viruses. Zinc has been shown to enhance cytotoxicity and induce apoptosis when used in vitro with a zinc ionophore. Chloroquine. Chloroquine has also been shown to enhance intracellular zinc uptake in vitro. Zinc levels are difficult to measure accurately, as zinc is distributed as a component of various proteins and nucleic acids. All right. And right here, we can clearly see there was a connection and it was promoted, but yet it's being policed. It's kind of weird. Um, Again, this channel does not align itself with any of these claims. Just observing this for proof, reading, grammar, and punctuation purposes. And everything looks good to me. Not like that last article. All right, here's another article we're going to proofread. This channel is making no claims, no medical claims here. Just proofreading. Are you tired, depressed, achy, anxious? Is it possible that you may have copper toxicity or an imbalance between copper and zinc in your body? Our bodies function optimally in a state of balance, also known as homeostasis, and they are constantly working to maintain what can sometimes be a very delicate balance of fluids, vitamins, and minerals. When it comes to supplementation, something that is often overlooked is the balance of minerals and other supplements can be more important than actual numbers that appear on lab tests. Relying solely on lab testing and not understanding the importance of balance can have profound impacts on health in the same way that being deficient in many of these vitamins or minerals can be. Okay. Copper and zinc are essential to sustain proper health and function of the human body. Both of these minerals can be found naturally in our food and water. They can have sometimes serious health consequences. If they are deficient or imbalanced within our body's copper and zinc imbalance is fairly common and come from some pretty surprising places. It can have a huge impact on health and how you feel. Copper and zinc work together in a process such as immune response, nervous system function, and healthy digestion. These are antagonists, meaning that the levels of one decreases the other and increases vice versa. While excess zinc and copper deficiency can both occur, the reverse, excess copper and deficient zinc, is far more common. So you see this copper and zinc. I'm speaking figuratively here. I'm not talking about this article. I'm talking about the ritual. Um, you can definitely see this back and forth thing with copper and zinc. And we know what copper allegorically references. What does zinc do? Zinc is one of the most important trace elements in the body that's associated with a huge number of processes in the body. It might actually be easier to talk about what zinc doesn't do. Zinc is Zinc is important in enzyme function, metabolism that is required for DNA coding, immune cell signaling that helps defend the body, and program cell death, a normal process called apoptosis. This means that zinc is needed for growth and development, cellular energy, brain function, and immune function. Zinc deficiency has been linked to birth defects, metabolic disorders, and may be linked to autism. Um, all I know is there's been a lot of residual side effects of the you know what that have a lot of neurological and immune and nervous system side effects attached to it. I'm wondering if there's a connection there. I'm not talking about this article at all. I'm speaking figuratively about a ritual that's been done over the masses. So far, this article seems really well read. Um, I'll proofread a little bit more. It's correct punctuation here. What does copper do? Copper is also necessary for overall healthy functioning of the body. It's responsible for the function of many enzymes, carbohydrate metabolism, and is an important component of liver tissue, brain tissue, and kidney tissue and hair. Hmm. It appears that copper may play a very important role in the mental decline that is sometimes associated with, again, as well as many good and behavioral disorders. Copper is required to create the neurotransmitter, trans, the neurotransmitter, and neuroepinephrine. Too much copper can show up as everything from chronic fatigue to nausea to mood disorders. Hmm. The excess of copper can also prevent proper bone remodeling and may be a major player in the development of osteoporosis. Oh, wow. Copper overload. Okay, so the fact that there's. Okay, copper is much more abundant in the environment than zinc. It is a result of many of us are exposed regularly to. As a result, many of us are exposed to copper, water pipes, drinking water, dental fillings, birth control pills, copper IUDs, and the shift in our diet away from meats all have been implicated in a copper overload. I was a vegetarian for a long time, so I have a bone to pick with copper. Okay, so some say even we're in a copper kingdom because of our use of coppers and like in the ACs and the pipes, it's in our hot water coolers or hot water heaters, and it's in everything. And you know, but the whole 1982 thing combined with the zinc, I think we can see the whole imbalance of copper and zinc in the world today, and it's no coincidence on a literal or a figurative level that is completely connected. And you can see the possible results of these things. Um, Common copper overload symptoms: a tired body, overactive mind, anxiety, premenstrual syndrome, and painful periods, frequent headaches, craving for higher copper foods such as chocolate, nuts, and avocados, depression, mood disturbances, and behavioral changes, frequent colds, flus, and viruses, easy or frequent bruising. Risk factors of copper overload: slow metabolism, excessive stress and adrenal insufficiency, high estrogen levels, birth control pills, or copper IUDs, some silver, amglam, or gold alloy dental fillings, zinc deficiency, vegetarian diet. Okay, again, I'm making no medical claims here. I'm just simply observing this article for proofreading purposes, and it's excellent so far. Proofread perfectly. And I agree 100% with all the proofreading of this. It's correct punctuation, periods, and spelling. Regaining your balance, limit copper exposure, increase zinc intake, heal your adrenals, supplement with other nutrients that help decrease copper levels. It's a pretty interesting article. I suggest you proofread it. Make sure I didn't miss anything. A period, a comma, or a question mark. But I think we now see there is a definite connection with the 1982 switch. And I think all these things are supernaturally designed. They're happening supernaturally, and they're probably called in. Meaning, you know, do they have to promote zinc with the copper because they know that that's going to be an issue when the whole Vidco thing comes out? I don't know. I think it's part of it. I think these people know to a certain extent, but I think it's just something bigger than us. I think these things happen, and it's supernaturally, and they're coordinated by powers, and principalities that are, that supersede our understanding, and we can just, trace the residual, you know, and if we're really good, we can totally see this stuff coming, but I think it's undeniable to see the copper zinc connection, and there may be something to all this. Um, and I would never ever claim that there's a medical connection here. That's not what I'm claiming. I'm not saying that at all that zinc, is a protectant from the copper kingdom or the copper overload in these end times. I would never ever say that. I'm not making any medical claim for that at all. Now, I would never ever say that they would put truth in plain sight either. So YouTube, I'm not making those claims. The only thing I'm claiming is 100% I'm about is there's a connection. And that's the reason why we see the change from 1982, because of the metonic cycle. It's the copper serpent traversing time and space. Right? The copper component, it has weird electromagnetic components. It actually like warps magnetism. And remember, Lincoln was the copper president because of the copper telephone lines, telegraph lines. And you figure that's a form of time travel. And the penny is your link, right? Your Lincoln is on the penny, linking one time to another, just like linking the metonic cycles to another. And you can bet your lucky stars that 19 years from 2020, 39, there will be another event. And it's probably right in front of our faces if we're wrong about the times that we're in. Meaning, if these are not end times, which I don't, I don't think we'll be here, and or the world as we know it will be the same in 2039. But if it is, I guarantee you there's another catastrophic event that'll happen for sure. 100%. And it's right in front of our faces. I mean, we just gotta, be able to see it, just like the copper penny, right? The conversion from copper to zinc. on that specific year, because it's all connected. It's all linked. Remember the 01, the 7-Eleven is linked to Vidco 100%, because symbolically they mean the same thing. And I even made a video about the serpents of light traversing time, right? And so like the Vidco, or I mean the 7-Eleven event was the serpent of light potentially um, becoming light, meaning traversing the physical and becoming the first step into the metaphysical. Okay, so you had your invisible terrorists to watch out for. They were real, but we all know it's all like government coordinated or whatever it may be. They were real, but not real. Then you had your Vitco, and it became 100. Then you had your invisible terrorist again, but the terrorist became 100% invisible. Correct? It's everywhere. You can die, you can get sick. It's everywhere. And at the exact same time, you had the rollout of the 5G copper towers, and you had the whole meta push, because the serpent went 100% metaphysical, went from physical to metaphysical. The serpent became the serpent of light. It also means that the serpent masquerades as something good, but it's really not. But anyway, all these things are connected. And hopefully YouTube doesn't give me a copyright strike on this. And if they do, I'll probably just cut out the whole meta. Some parts of the video, I'll completely cut it out, and yeah, and I'll upload it to the backup channel. Well, then again, if they give me another copyright strike, I won't be able to get a hold of you until next week. Ugh. Anyway, I think we'll be good. All right. So, if anything confuses you about any of this stuff we talked about, I know it was a long-winded video. Um, I try to do a week's worth of video into one day, um, and I try to do these on my days off, and hopefully you learn something from it. Hopefully, um, it opened your eyes. If you have any questions about anything, just leave your questions in the comments, and I'll get to them. I'll make a video on them. I'm eager to. Just let me know. If you're confused, let me know. I know it's a lot of information being thrown at you, and I'm not the best speaker at all. I'm not the best reader. I'm a lot like Moses when it comes to having a slow tongue and a slow brain. I'm doing the best I can, but I guarantee you this information is sound. 100%. I'm a good researcher. um, I figure I'm a good investigator. It's what I do. All right. So you can count on the information. And if I do make mistakes, I always come back and say, hey, I think I was wrong about this and that. Done it before. I'm not perfect, but at the same time, I know my stuff. All right. Okay. So if any of this compels you to get saved, if you're not saved, here are some salvation verses. Um, I'll read a couple new ones. Let's see which ones I haven't read. I'll do Psalms 3:8. Salvation belongeth unto the Lord. Thy blessing is upon thy people. Selah. Psalms 37:39. But the salvation of righteousness is of the Lord. He is their strength in their time of trouble. Psalm 62:1. Truly my soul waiteth upon God, for him cometh my salvation. Acts 28:28. Be it known therefore unto you that salvation of God is sent unto the Gentiles, that they will hear it. Romans 6:14. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under the law, but under grace. Okay? We are under grace. Romans 10:9. That if you shall confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus Christ, and shall believe in thine heart that God had raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. Ephesians 2:8-9. For by grace you are saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God. So it's not your works that save you. It's not your chance. It's not your owns. It's grace through faith in Jesus Christ. Titus 3:5. Not by works of righteousness which we have done, but according to his mercy he has saved us by the washing of regeneration and renewing of the Holy Ghost. Right? And if you want to have spiritual eyes to see these things, get saved. It's up to you. Or if you want to remain blind, it's up to you too. Alrighty. Let me see if I missed anything before I go. Oh, I do want to touch on the mark. When I took my break, I thought about it. I'm not saying the mark is the vodka. I'm saying that's the last nail in the coffin before you should get saved. It's our subservience and our allegiance to this world and who rules this world is the mark, ultimately. Okay? So those people out there that, are worried that they took it, you have something bad in you, that's all part of the psychological break, right? They're trying to split us apart, and they're doing a good job of it. But at the same time, you don't have to tell anybody that you took anything, right? Besides God. God will cleanse you and purify you from anything and everything. That's the vodka is, it's a water pill. It's pseudoscience. Um, where they get you is the spiritual confirmation of you truly choosing this world over God, relying on their pharmakia over God. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the doctors. I'm not saying that at all. No medical claims on here. I'm saying just consult with the Lord first, and He'll guide you. Um, no medical claims on this channel whatsoever.